extremely relevant to what could have been done for Ebony's father and for Greg's father. And that's what I'm here to talk a little bit with you about. Dr. Nemerov hinted that there are gains to paternal engagement, and we know that there are things that fathers bring to the table that mothers do not. They bring different ideas about discipline, humor, mastery. They're teasers. They're rough and tumble handlers. They hold their children and show them the world as opposed to cuddle them into it. They are quite devoted to getting their kids ready for the real world. Mothers tend to spend a lot more of their time getting children ready for relationships. It is a lucky kid who gets both, because they need both. What we did in the state of California was work with, in a highly sophisticated scientific model, 500 families of migrant workers. These are the lower end of the economic spectrum. These are families that have a hard time keeping themselves together. Their children have very high rates of abuse and neglect. We put together a program at the request of the state of California that worked. With this program, we were able to get a hold of the men and the women who were in their lives with whom they were making children, and said, I want you to think about this. That was Dr. Cosby's point. I want you to think about this with something other than your body parts. I want you to think about it with your heart and your mind, your history, your hopes, your fears, your partner. I want you to think about it, and we're going to help you do it for hours and hours. We're going to have a man and a woman in a group with you and 8 other couples. Whether you're married or not, doesn't matter. If you've made a kid together, we care about helping you think about this very carefully. We had a randomized control group, and we proved the following: that you don't have to be scared away by these horrendous histories that you've heard about. These people are entitled to having their children have their dreams come true as well. You have to stick with them. You need quality people, thinking with them about their histories, their dreams, what they know about children, what they know about each other. But if you do, and confront the difference between what they hope for their children, what they experience themselves, and what they're angry with the other partner about, if you keep that stuff in the room and on the table and work it through over time, you can reduce the rates of abuse and neglect to nearly zero. You can stabilize the relationships and reduce the incidence of anxiety and depression in the couples. You can reduce the harsh treatment of the children. You can reduce the frailty of the marriage, and you can strengthen mental health all around. The excuses are gone. We now know how to do this. And you want to see why we should bother?
Questions from anyone? Senator Kissel.
Thank you. Doctor, how do we get our arms around the situation where, let's say, a young couple engage and they're going to have a baby, and the young man, maybe he's with a gang, he's out on the street, just running free, really doesn't want to have any responsibility. And at the same time, maybe that girl and her mom or her grandmother really doesn't want to have anything to do with that guy. And yet somehow, we as a state, we want to do everything from birth all the way on. So we have medical care and counseling and prenatal drugs and vitamins for the woman, but there doesn't seem to be any outreach to pull that guy, that young man, and no one's saying you have to get married, but you have to participate in some way, shape, or form. And how do we do that when it seems like the parties on the ground don't really want to pull that unit together? And what I'm getting at is, even if they don't end up married or anything else, if that young man is some participant in some way, shape, or form for that child, I'm thinking that at least that's getting us a little bit down the road to having a male role model, and maybe that as that young man gets older, he'll want to participate more in that. But we sort of don't, we let it go right at the beginning, and it's very difficult to pull that back.
Are you talking about sex?
I'm saying when my son's in the room too. I'm talking Nathaniel. No, I'm talking about young, kids having kids. Okay, teenagers, kids in high school. They're not even graduating. The girl has a baby, right? And the father is nowhere to be found. And so shouldn't that young man be a part of the raising that child, or at least participate in it? No one said, I mean, in a perfect world they would get married and everything will work out, but it's not a perfect world. But at the same time, we're doing everything for that young girl to make sure that that baby is healthy, but we don't do anything to bring that young man into that unit to participate in any way, shape, or form.
And now we will answer.
Senator Kissel, one of the things we discovered in this population we worked with was that we vastly underestimated the desire of these boys, men, to be involved with their children. And nobody asked them. Nobody was talking to them about whether it mattered to them. All they wanted all the prenatal care was going to the mother. Most of the prenatal folks wouldn't even ask for the father's name. And if the mother was not cool on giving it to them, they wouldn't ask. But when they did ask, and their fathers were registered, and there was a program for them, led by people who knew where they were, knew they were gang members, knew this was probably not their only kid. These guys came. And they came because they had feelings about what was happening to them. And one of the problems at the government interface with these families is that by and large, there are fewer, if any, services available to these fathers. And if you get people like these guys sitting in a room and saying, have you thought about what this is going to be like for you? Well, let me tell you, you're on to something. This will be the only thing that you ever do in your life that will keep you from turning into your dad. You want some help? We know how to do it. And when you come at it without the stereotypic assumption that these guys are basically, reproductive systems walking around in pants, that actually they have thought about, because their histories are, hurt people. And that's why we decided to go after this population. The average age was 2.5. We were able to change probably a generation of folks.
Thank you very much.
Did you say change? Did you say change?
Get with it. Yes, I did say change.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a series of questions for both Dr. Namrao and Dr.
Okay.
McCann. One from each, and then we'll get more later from Representative Walker, then Representative Boucher,
Thank
and
you.
then Senator LeBeau and Senator Meyer. In that order.
Thank you, and thank you for your presentation. Dr. Cosby talked about an institution that is in the state, and not only just the state, but all states. It's foster care. And what you talked about here is about nurturing and connection. We have a process that separates that. But yet we've been continuing this process generation after generation after generation. As Dr. Cosby said, don't we get it yet? We talk about the fact that if we just take some of that money, we have a hospital, Riverview, and one child's cost is about $600,000 a year. If we took that $600,000 and just invested it into 6 families, the amount of change, how do we address retooling the foundations of foster care so that our children can be successful?
So this is the way I want people to, Dr. Cosby's given us a lot of models today. This is what I want people to sort of imagine a belt, right? And so every time you replace one caretaker with another caretaker, you put another notch in that belt. And you destroy, so this whole system of attachment by which a child sees the caretaker, attaches to the caretaker, animals do this, penguins do this. We saw this in the March of the Penguins. Powerful, powerful biological process. Happy Beat and March of the Penguins. And it was fabulous, right? The father and the mother are involved with the rearing of a penguin. Fabulous model, right? So every time you disrupt that system, it's like every other part of the neurologic system, which is if you do it enough, you stop feeling the pain.
Then why do we keep doing it? Why do we keep continually feeding into that system? I'm sorry.
Because, well, one of the things, and I think I'm more the one to talk about the pain. I work in an emergency room. I'm over there at CCMC. I see those kids. I see the Riverview kids. That's what I do. That's what my day looks like. Luckily, I have people like Dr. Pruitt telling me what we can do about it. But if I could just say one more thing about the system. Years ago, we decided that institutional care was no good. We took away group homes. We took away orphanages. They were horrible, right? The word orphan makes everyone sort of scream. But what we ask kids to do is that if they're traumatized by the situation of caretaking, we're asking them to go into another situation of caretaking. So we're reactivating the trauma. And if you get traumatized enough, you stop. In fact, it's called detachment. The end product of too many disrupted attachments becomes detachment. I see those kids in the emergency room. You ask them, who would care if they hurt somebody? No one. Who would care if you hurt yourself? Nobody. Do you care then if you hurt yourself or somebody else? No. You literally stop caring. Honestly, I'd love to hear Dr. Pruitt, but I'd like there to be a variety of living arrangements that are available to the child who is disrupted from their home. Let's say there are situations where neither parent can do the job and there really is no relative to step in. There has to be a variety of options, and one of them has to be a group home living situation that you can put a child in and not disrupt them from now until 21, because that is the only possibility. And when you put a child in group home, you're asking them to attach to a system rather than an individual, and that doesn't reenact the original trauma or the traumas of all those other disruptions.
I want to say, I want to add something, and this has to do with nothing but feeling. Once again, in Oakland, California, little Jewish lady who took on a job dealing with these people who at age 19 are aged out of the foster care system. There's about 80 of them, and the psychologist and I are talking to these people. But after it was over, this 4'11" Miss Katz, when you look at her, you automatically put her into a bag of, well, she's a nice little Jewish lady. But this woman, when she talked, she had a firmness to her. Not that she was bossing anybody around, but I knew that this woman knew what she was talking about. Now, first, let me tell you how she got the job. She took this job because she thought she was going to replace someone in a cubicle. She was met at the door by some woman who handed her all of the keys and said, "You got it." And she was the boss of this. She said, "Mr. Cosby, come with me." And she said, "The band is pulling in now." I want you all to feel this. The door opened and out stepped about 6 kids of all colors, around 8 years old, 8, 12. Every one of these kids had a black hefty bag and a little brown bag or something. They had a look on their faces like they were 77 years old. Just little old people. They are going into placement of another place. And she said as she saw them, "What do they look like to you?" And I said, immigrants. She said, exactly. I just want you to feel that. Because when it comes time to vote about things or to leave something on the table, you've got to know what you're doing. You've got to feel these things, and they can be fixed. Paradigm has to do with an example that works. It's fixable. Now we can move on.
Senator Boucher.
Thank you. On my drive up here, I listen to books on tape because it's a long, long drive. And I happened to pick up Booker T. Washington, Books on Tape. And one of the first paragraphs of this book was his point that much could be fixed with three things in mind. It was education, industry, and self-reliance. And I thought about that a lot with regards to this issue, and in particular when I heard Mr. Bartlett talk so courageously and so strongly, so inspirationally. And I thought, well, he got all those three things. And I got those three things from my father, who, by the way, in my family, my mother was completely illiterate. My father had barely a fifth grade education, and we came over from another country speaking only off of the farm. And he taught me education, industry, and self-reliance. And that included working with him side by side under a sink, we did plumbing, or menial jobs, when other 8, 9, and 10-year-old little girls were playing. And it teaches you a big lesson, and oftentimes that's what's missing. And another interesting, so much here today has touched me so profoundly. I have 3 wonderful kids. I had them all in an inner city hospital because my OBGYN was 75 years old and he never moved from the neighborhood. So I had these 3 babies, and all 3 of them, over a period of 12 years, I had a double room with a little 12-year-old, 13-year-old girl having a baby next to me, minority little girl. And one morning I woke up and there were cartoons being played on the TV in our room. And I would try to engage them and talk to them. And one I asked, where is your mom? She said, well, she's in a nursing home. I said, well, how old are you? I'm 13. I thought, did the math, and I thought, my God, the mother must only be 30 years old. She's in a nursing home. Another time, a minister came to see one of the girls. Only once did I see a young man show up that might have been the father, but stayed for 2 seconds and quickly ran back out again. It was absolutely heartbreaking and has stayed with me for a long, long time. And that whole circle, that constant children of having children, has been a nagging aspect of what we do here and on the various commissions we serve on. And your testimony in saying that you have the solution, you know the answer. I would love some more specifics on that, and in particular the comment you just made about the constant changing and not having a stable base to go from, and how we're moving kids from one environment to the next, and how, you know, maybe it wasn't such a good idea having an orphanage, but at least they were in one place for a long time. And my visits to incarcerated youth in the state, when often those teachers that teach incarcerated youth would say to me, maybe they should stay here another 6 months just so that they can get one grade level up, because, by the way, in jail they go to school every single day. There's someone there to make sure that they show up. And when I hear that in Waterbury that some kids move from in their own town 14 times in 1 year because of the instability of their home life, how could they possibly succeed in school and be able to move forward? I would love to hear some specifics of what you think you know that works, so that we can understand where we should go public policy-wise.
I'm offering to come and talk at length with the task force, and I will bring you data charts more than you want to see, but mostly some testimony from the families who went through the program. because what they think happened to them is a lot more important than what we think happened to them. And I'd be very happy to do that at any time. It's too long and complex to do it here. But we were very proud of it, and it was gold standard science, and it's not been done anywhere else, and that's why I can say with you, with more confidence than I've ever said anything in my 40 years of academic life, this works. Oh, and for 30 seconds, I want to get back to Tony Harp's question about why we keep doing this. There are very many complicated reasons about it.
Just to let you know, I'm Tony Walker.
I'm sorry.
I'm the other Tony. There are two Tonys.
You're the only Tony.
There's 3 Tonys here. There's Tony Boucher too.
It's a triple Tony. Okay, thank you.
That's why we keep
Thank
doing
you.
this.
And as you're preparing to handle that question, Dr. Pruitt, I'm trying to be a little bit of the gatekeeper, trying to keep us on target here, because we're very grateful, and I begin to talk about how grateful we are, how generous Dr. Cosby has been with his time. But I do know we have a time frame here that we're working with, and that's why I'm going to ask each of the legislators if we can be very brief, very concise with whatever questions we do have. We want to make sure that they're all covered. I believe Dr. Cosby also has some other presenters. We want to make certain that we hear everything that he came to present. And then, as I said, we can go back and have a lot of the other questions answered.
Then I'll talk to you after class.
We'll probably want to still hear that publicly, Dr. Pruitt.
Yes? I would like to introduce the mayor of Hartford.
And as it's coming, each of you just write your question down. I think Dr. Cosby's going to let us get a chance to get them in.
Senator LeBeau and Representative Morris and the Fatherhood Committee, thank you for allowing us the time. Rarely do I come up here unrehearsed, but today I'm unrehearsed. One thing, I think that there's probably, listening to the testimony in charge of the committee, there are probably 2 things I wanted to tease you about and have you think about longer term, and maybe we could do that at another forum that was already suggested with a little more detail. First one is that the work that I've done in the city of Hartford has only been most successfully with women and not as successful with men. And it's because all of the work I've done has been around families, and in most cases, the man is the invisible entity in the family unit. And what I wanted to say, there are probably, and I'm going to use just two areas where I believe that city, state, federal government provide disincentives and encourage the individuals to become more invisible rather than participating in the life of a child and the well-being of a family. Some of you may know that I worked in public housing, spent 5 years working in public housing. Was an important enlightenment in my career. And in there we had, I worked with moms to get them from welfare to work out of public housing and into the mainstream of society. We were very successful. But in order for us to work with the males who were in the units, who were having babies, and who were fathers to the children in those families, it would not be recognized by the housing authority in this case. Because in order for them to qualify for housing, a male couldn't be contributing to the household income because that would make them ineligible for maybe sometimes $10, $15 a month would make them ineligible to be for the housing unit. And the housing authority would not fund any programs that involved any individual that wasn't on the lease. And in 60 to 80% of the households, there was a male present. And unfortunately, the male was, in most cases, a factor in the success of that household. And because we kept them in the shadows, anytime the young lady signed up for a GED program and signed up for a college program and signed up for a job, guess what happened? We were interfering in that family unit to the point that making the female more successful and leaving the male behind gave a lot of tension that you could well imagine. I'm not going to talk a lot about that. You can let your own imagination what happens in a household. And when the next door household is treated the same way, and you foster a way of life that's not accepted. I used to call my work in public housing working in apartheid. It's like working in a world that none of us would understand, having its own rules of success and engagement that we would all reject as norms to any normal family growing up. And then you got to remember, in this case, I was working in a housing project that had the 4th and 5th generation public housing welfare recipients. The second one, that's just the housing situation and the way we treat public housing. And while in Hartford we have gotten rid of all our major public housing projects except one, all we've done is displace the problem. Those same rules still exist throughout the Section 8 program and throughout public supported programs. Second one that I wanted to mention is the situation that I hope this task force looks at seriously and comes up with a way of being able to forgive dads who want to come back, who in most cases actually do come back in a positive way, have turned their lives around, and are trying to make a go of it, and we can't forgive their child support. They get rearrested. They get rearrested and put back in jail if they're part of the family unit, and the family has to turn them in order to do that. I would ask you that for any structured program where we have a program reuniting families, there should be an incentive to forgive either a portion, if not the whole amount of child support. In some cases, I've had males who have been incarcerated for 10 years, just like the testimony we had. The families visit them, they're still not a family unit, come back, have a family unit, the individual gets a job and can't keep up with the child support payments and ends up actually being sentenced. In 2 cases, I being my siblings, in 2 cases, I had to come up with the money so they wouldn't go to jail in order to keep them working as part of the family unit. So if there's one big thing you could do in public policy is for those individuals that are in a structured program, and we have many programs that are working with individuals, that you figure a way to deal with. In some cases, this is $30,000, $40,000, $60,000 of money that these individuals are not, they're paying $15, $20 every pay period, and they're never going to catch up. But they're trying to reunite with their families, and I think that those are just 2 examples of how we have disincentives that prevent males to re-engage with their families. Again, there are many other things that we could talk about I'm at your disposal, but there are a couple other people going to be testifying as well.
Thank you, Mr. President. Any questions from any members of the committee? Thank you. For now.
My name is Gail Allen Green, and I'm the proud principal of Buckley High School on Weatherspoon Avenue. I've been in the Hartford school system for 28 years. So just go. All right. At Buckley High School, over 65% of our students do not have a father in their lives as a result of divorce or the parents never being married. The great majority of these students rarely see their fathers on a regular basis. Students who live in 2-parent homes come to school on a regular basis with greater frequency than those whose fathers are not in the home. Students who have both parents in their lives and live with both parents tend to have successful high school experiences. Students who have both parents in their lives are more likely to graduate from high school and attend a post-secondary institution. Students who have both parents in their lives do not get in trouble in and out of school as often as their counterparts whose fathers are not present in the home. Teen pregnancy occurs more often to young people whose fathers are not in their lives. In preparing for this, I surveyed many of our students from Buckley High School and found that it was painful to hear some of the stories that both male and female students, who surprisingly do not express anger or bitterness, rather a yearning and a longing to have their fathers in their lives. The absence of their father has left such a large hole in these young people's lives and such deep scars that seem impossible to fill and heal. I would just like to read some excerpts from some of the things that both male and female students from Buckley High School have shared. If you have a father, cherish every moment that you can with him, because I wish I had one who cared. So I am going to prove my dad wrong, and when I look in the mirror, I don't see him. I see myself being successful. Nobody in my family likes my dad because he is a bad influence. He did not finish high school, so they think and keep saying I am going to follow in his footsteps. I am going to finish school, become successful, and make something of myself. I want to grow up and be a better man than my father is. I have no one to talk to about becoming a man, and I don't feel comfortable talking to my mom about some of those things. My mother is both my father and my mother. She has taken care of my family without his help. I do miss having my father in my life, and I wonder, who will walk me down the aisle? Some girls start looking for love in all the wrong places. Males in their lives tend to feel the void of not having a father. They are looking for someone to protect them, looking for love, which is the sex, and all girls want to be known as daddy's little girl. Some students grow up and begin to resent their moms because they feel she drove their fathers away. Did my father love me? Was he not able to take care of me? Did I do something wrong? In conferences, when we meet with the moms themselves feel abandoned, depressed, angry, overworked. In our school, in many urban environments, you have to be, as an administrator or a teacher, you have to be the mom and the dad.
Say that again.
You have to be the mom.
In the school.
In the school, you have to be the mom and the dad. And I love sports. And so for me, I'm able to relate to a lot of the males in the school and will often take them to meet the few males that do work in the high school, such as Mr. Bartlett, to make sure that they have an appropriate relationship with at least one male in the building. And as you look on TV and you see the famous athletes, who are they giving thanks to? Their moms. Very rarely do you see like a Michael Jordan or a Tiger Woods that had a great relationship with their dad, and when they do, they put that dad out in the forefront. Often again, as I say on TV, when they're thanking someone, they're always thanking their mom.
Sometimes the grandmother.
Sometimes the grandmother, but it's still a void.
Senator Meyer.
I just want to share something with you that I've shared with the task force, and that is that this issue of fatherlessness goes far beyond urban. It goes far beyond inner city. It goes far beyond urban. I'm the father of 6 children, and one of them, my daughter, her husband moved out after fathering 3 children. Moved to another country, took up with another woman, and I saw those 3 fatherless children become quite quickly children at risk. And they went through tremendously difficult experiences without a man in the house. And And earlier this year, my daughter met another man, they got married, and there's a father back in the house. But I've seen it so up close. And it really is not a matter of whether it's urban or suburban or rural or the color of our skins. This is a statewide problem here in Connecticut. It's a national problem. I'd like to get your reaction to a couple of ideas of mine. We're thinking as legislators here. we can have a bully pulpit and try to help there, but beyond that, Mayor Perez talked about some disincentives in the current law, and that was very important. I have seen courts order fathers to pay child support. I've seen courts allow fathers to visit their children. I have never seen a court order a father to be a father. And I'm wondering if as we work with our family courts in this country, whether or not we can instill a sensitivity in our family court judges to bring out orders that if they don't mandate it, they encourage fatherhood in some way. Secondly, I'm the chair of the Children's Committee of the General Assembly here in Connecticut, and the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services came out earlier this fall with a report that said that our Department of Children and Families does not deal with fathers. That when a child, and there are 6,500 of them in this state, when a child has been abandoned, neglected, or abused, the department in charge is dealing with the mother, but not the father. And so we have a government system that itself, as Mayor Perez is really saying, is disincentivizing fathers from doing it. They're not involved in the process of healing. They're not involved in the process of reunification by the government agency that's in charge of this. So I throw out those two ideas and would love the reaction of the panel to them. Thanks.
Is that a question? Or a statement? That was a question.
Yes, the question is your reaction to where we're going to go legislatively, particularly taking into account the court order situation and the Department of Children and Family situation.
As Mayor Perez had indicated, it's deeper than, it goes back 5 generations or more, where they made it easy for the father not to be involved and made it so he should not be involved in order for the mother to take care of the family.
But I don't think you can tell a judge what to say. Is anybody feeling that? I don't think you guys can tell a judge. Hello?
I don't know where it says you guys can tell a judge what to tell a prisoner. Thank you. I have a young man who would like to put some feeling on this.
My name is Alex Park, and I attend classical magnet, and I'm a junior there. I guess today we're just speaking of fathers and the absence of them in people's lives. My story is not really the same as everyone else that shared, but my father was in my life for a while, all the way until I was about 8, and then my parents got divorced around there when he was an alcoholic and that whole mess. And, it was not really like you're with him these days, with her these days. I was with my mother most of the time, and when I was with my father, it wasn't that great. And my father died about, a year ago in January. And it's like everyone said previously, it's a big void in the life, and it's a big absence for me. And it's tossed everything upside down. Everything's different. Things have worsened for me. For instance, my grades, at least. Ever since that, my grades have gone down. I'm just not motivated to do anything anymore. It's a big piece of losing life.
Are you listening to anyone?
Listening to anyone?
Your grades went down.
Yes.
Why?
I fault of my own now. I wasn't motivated anymore. I didn't want to do anything.
Okay, did any teachers pull you aside and say, what's going on? What's happening?
Yeah.
And what did you say?
I said nothing. I didn't really want to share.
How are they gonna know?
They don't. But
You don't want to share.
Right.
What good is that doing?
No good at all.
Who are you punishing?
I'm just hurting myself.
He's dead.
Right.
Can't hurt him anymore.
Right.
What'd your mother say?
About my grades.
Yeah.
She's disappointed in them. I've always had good grades. And
You want to punish her?
No, I do not.
Well, who are you punishing?
Like I said, only myself.
When you were doing well in school, what was your motivation?
I just, it's just good to do good in school.
Why?
Because you want to be successful. You want to go to college.
Now you don't.
Correct.
So what's taking the place of you feeling good?
Feeling bad.
Very good move to it. Very good fearless. Talk really about the depression, okay? Hey, Peerless, when I ask questions of Alex. All right, if we can do this.
But I got one more.
Oh, you got another one? Okay.
Yeah. Okay, you can thank you. Yeah, no, you're not, Alex.
Great job, Alex. Great job. Thank you, Alex. Don't go anywhere, Dr. Pruitt.
Come on, my wife. Myra. My wife. Tell them who you are. This is my powerful one. She's the closer. And I'm not talking about there won't be a dry eye. She's just wonderful.
Thank you, Dr. Cosby. I'm Myra Eskelin. I am a parent of 3 children. I'm a single parent. I have a 15-year-old, a 10-year-old, and a 6-year-old. It's quite the task to be a single parent. You don't set out to do that task. Like most young women, I have had dreams of a wedding and long relationships and a happily ever after. But that did not happen. And I think the case is that I did not have that a father in my own life, and the gentleman who fathered my children did not have fathers in their own lives. So is the case that with our best intentions and our desires to give our children the very best, neither of us were equipped to make up for the void. Well, as a young woman, I did receive a lot of support, lots of prenatal classes and parenting classes and great education. As a young woman in the inner city, I don't think the fathers of my children had those opportunities provided to them. And while they often look at me and say, I really love my child, I really do believe that they love their children. I just don't think they ever learned how to love their children. And while we have lots of wonderful programs, we have very few programs that really afford young men the opportunity to learn how to love their children. Now that I'm in the nurturing with the Children's Trust Fund, as an employee with the state and the Children's Trust Fund, the nurturing program, I know that we do have a pilot of one opportunity to bring in male home visitors to really work with young men to figure out how is it that you want to parent, to really ask those questions. I had tons of questions thrown at me as a young mother of a 15-year-old, and I was very young then. Tons of questions, preschool and how children develop and how to change the diaper and where do you want to, what kind of formula to give them and what kinds of things do you want and how do you create attachment and how do you make sure that they play and I learned words like cognitive development and emotional development and all of the kinds of things that allow me to be a good parent to my child. But I don't think my children's fathers ever had those opportunities. And I think that that is really the case, regardless of my relationship with them. I think that that only gets in the way of the fact of the only person who can be that intermediary is me. And they don't necessarily want me in their lives, and I don't necessarily want them in their lives, but they do want to be a part of their children's lives. They just don't know how. As a single parent, you'll go to many school meetings. As a single parent, you're the one who has to do groceries. I just moved this weekend into a third-floor apartment with my 3 children, and we spent all night trying to move upstairs. We spent all night.
No elevator.
No elevator, Joe. No elevator. And I think that the case becomes that the work is doubled. And it would have been nice if I could have sent them to their father.
And had a husband to carry that stuff up
I thought you were married, Joe.
I was going to marry, but my wife wouldn't let me. But those of us who are fathers, we know what it's like to have people point at us like we're the bellman.
Yes.
And carry this up here and carry that up here. And that. And be quiet.
I wish I had a male this past weekend to help move some of those sofas back in and figure out how to get them through the door frame. But my point is that I think what Dr. Cosby and all of us are trying to tell this legislative group and this task force is that this is really about feelings. This is really, at the end of the day, what you're trying to do is undo decades. You see very successful people like myself and others behind me, but there's a lot of pain that goes. And for the 5 of us or 6 of us or all of us that are here, there are many, many more who did not make it up the streets. There are many, many more who are sitting in our prison systems. There are many children who are failing our school systems. And so, while we can hold up a handful and say, there is possibility, look what can happen, if we don't hold up these handfuls and be able to show that it takes a lot of work to be able to get to the point that we are all at. And that can easily be done if we bring back the males into our community. Without that father, we say in our household looks like that. Mom, you have to work later. I've been texting my son, letting them know I'm on my way to feed you guys. But it usually means it's just me. I'm cooking, putting the food on the table. I don't necessarily have the time to eat with them if I want to accomplish other things. And so, once I get out of work, the moment becomes, there's so many things to do that it could be a drive-through, it could be, this conversation has, missing pieces to it. I have a 15-year-old boy, and for as much as open as I want to talk about all the things about being a young man, and it's okay, you can talk to me, the reality is not okay. I'm his mother. He doesn't necessarily want to talk, and while I can understand intellectually, I could never understand emotionally or psychologically what he's going through and what does that mean to him.
Very good. Myra, thank you very much. And Jack, thank you for talking to us about the Nurturing Families Network program. Because that's one of the things, our next meeting, which we'll be talking about at the end, Dr. Tim Black from Hartford, from the University of Hartford, is going to be here because we've asked them to pilot that and come back with some actual data to show us about the outcomes. So thank you for sharing your perspective on it. We have 2 questions for you from Representative Walker, followed by Representative Clemens.
Thank you, Mara, for sharing your story. Okay, I was a single parent too, and one of the things that I had to go through was trying to prepare my children to not be in the same boat that I was in. One, in relationships. What are you doing with your sons and your daughters, I take it, to try and prepare them so that they don't necessarily have to have the single relationship?
Well, one of the first things I learned is that, you really have to deal with what you feel. And so I try to be as open and honest with them about how they're feeling. When Alexis's father didn't call her on her birthday, and she knows he did not forget because they share the same birthday, helping her process that. What does that mean? What does that mean? How do you feel about that? Does that make angry? And so being able to kind of help not bury it, because I think it's easy for us to kind of bury it and not deal with it. And I think my attitude is if they bury it, it's going to turn out like me. So being able to deal with it that way.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Ms. Escalante, for sharing this afternoon. Just a couple of questions, if I may. Were you fortunate enough to grow up in a two-parent home?
No, I grew up in a single-family home.
Single-family home. And with your children, when did you come to the decision that you wanted to have children? Around what age?
I had my son when I was 23.